Good day, everyone. I am Dan Jerome Barrera. I'm going to share with you this lecture series entitled Human Rights Education for Criminology Students. But before anything else, let me first share to you this Bible verse from Jeremiah chapter 22, verse 3. It says here, "This is what the Lord says: Do what is right and just, rescue from the hand of the oppressor the one who has been robbed, do no wrong or violence to the foreigner, and the fatherless or the widow, and do not shed innocent blood in this place." God is commanding us not to shed innocent blood in any place. He is also commanding us to do what is just and what is right. In other words, we must respect the rights of other people. We must be acting justly. And if you become law enforcers someday, you must be just. You must not be discriminatory. You must be fair in your dealings with different kinds of people from all walks of life. Now let's go to the part 1 of our lecture series entitled The Nature of Human Rights. What is the nature of human rights? What is a human rights? What are human rights violations? And what are the laws on human rights in enforcing human rights, not only in the Philippines but also all around the world? We'll answer those questions shortly. What are the police violations that we should be focusing in this lecture or in this subject? The first police violations that should be the focus in human rights education is genocide. What is genocide? Genocide is to destroy a tribe, to destroy a race or a particular religious group by another group, by killing, bodily or mentally harm, or to conditions for physical destruction, like depriving them of food, depriving supply of food to their place or barangay or to that particular tribe so that they will be eliminated. That is genocide. Or to prevent births or transferring children from one tribe to another so that the tribe of origin will be deprived of their own children. So that is genocide. We have learned, and for sure you have read already about genocide that Hitler committed, genocide in Africa and other places of the world. Genocide to destroy one group of people, a tribe or a religious group or a racial group. Next, there should be the focus in human rights education is torture. If you have heard the news, this was the wheel of torture. So suspects in year 2017, if I'm not mistaken, they were made to move this wheel, and if the arrow will point to a part of the pie, so that will be the punishment of the suspect. This is illegal. This is torture. But it was done for fun, but torture may also be done, and this is the purpose of most of the torturous acts, is to obtain information from the suspect or confession from the suspect, or to punish or to intimidate or to coerce the suspect. So that is illegal. We have laws regarding this. Next, enforced or involuntary disappearance. If you have heard from the news, this was Jovito Palparan. He was arrested because he was accused and eventually convicted by the regional trial court and the Court of Appeals for the crime of illegal detention, kidnapping of certain activists. So that is enforced or involuntary disappearance of activists done by some military officers. Of course, not all of those who disappeared were kidnapped by police officers. Some of them were kidnapped by other people. Next, extra-legal, arbitrary, or summary executions. One example of this is extrajudicial killings committed by police officers, or so that is deprivation of life without full judicial or legal process. So without legal process, escaping the legal process is to kill or to punish a person. Or death through the excessive use of force. Excessive use of force. The operation might be legal, but the use of force is excessive. For example, a suspect is unarmed without firearms and boxing the police officer, and then all of a sudden the police officer shoots the suspect who is an unarmed. That is excessive use of force. So that is an extra legal, arbitrary, or summary execution. That is illegal. Next, arbitrary arrest or detention. So some offenders are arrested without cause. They just arrested because they are in the crime scene, although they were just witnesses. For example, in one example, in one news I have heard, there were some youths arrested because they were accused to be tambais. Years before, tambais were arrested because of curfew. Then they were arrested, but some were not really tambais. They were working and they were arrested without cause by the police officer. So that's arbitrary arrest and detention. Next, racial discrimination or ethnic discrimination in the Philippines. So here on the picture you can see that probably these black people or Negroes, they were stopped by police officers without cause. Just because they were black people, they were stopped by the police. That is discrimination. You should not judge a person by looking at their physical appearance and you say that this is criminal because he looks like this, he looks like that, and so on and so forth. So that is racial discrimination based on race and to prevent or to hinder them from exercising their human rights on equal basis. There were accounts that in the past in the US and even in the current time that some black people, when they ride motor vehicles, there are luxurious vehicles, they were stopped by police officers because police officers could not believe that black people could buy luxurious vehicles, and that is racial discrimination, just indiscriminately stopping black people on the streets without reason. It's because they were black, they were stopped by police officers. Next, emphasis on human rights is very important because human rights violations has some terrible effects on the image of the police. For example, human rights violations erode public confidence. So instead of the public will be confident in reporting crimes to the police, the public will not report any more crimes because of antagonism towards the police. Next, it hampers effective prosecutions in court because nobody will testify for the police or isolate the police from the community. So they will be out of place in the community because the community will distrust the police. Next, it will result in guilty going free and the innocent being punished. Of course, if you violate the human rights of other people, so you might be imprisoning or punishing innocent people and freeing guilty ones. Then it leaves the victim of crime without justice for his or her suffering. Then it forces police agencies to be reactive rather than preventive in their approach to crime. So instead of prevention, the police might be overly focused on reaction towards crime, not prevention. And it brings agents and institutions of public authority into disrepute. So the police officers will lose their reputation, good reputation, because of human rights violations. And it exacerbates civil unrest. So if there is disorder, so human rights violations will exacerbate the situation. So for example, if there is a rally on the streets, there are rallies on the streets, so there is civil unrest, then police officers commit human rights violations by beating without cause, without reason, the protesters, the rallyists. So it will exacerbate It will make the situation worse because of human rights violation. So overall, observing human rights of suspects and other people by the police officers is very important because it affects the works of the police and the image of the police. But what are human rights? According to the United Nations, human rights are inherent to all human beings, regardless of race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or any other status. Human rights include the right to life. You and me have the right to life. Any person have the right to life, whether black, whether white, whether yellow, whatever the color of your skin, whether you are Asian, whether you are African, European, American, we all have a right to life and liberty, freedom from slavery. No one should be slaved, and no one should be tortured. We should have a freedom of opinion and expression, except when our opinions are libelous. So they are libel, or they tend to defame other people. So that's the limitation of our rights. The right to work, education, many more. So everyone is entitled to these rights without discrimination. According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Human rights are universal legal guarantees protecting individuals and groups against actions by governments. We can see here from this definition from the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights that human rights tend to balance the scale between the state, between the government, and the people. You know that the state or the government is very powerful. The government has police officers, the government has prisons, the government has a lot of weapons on their own hands. So a lowly suspect, on the other hand, is at disadvantage. So one way to balance the power between these two, the suspect and the state, who is so powerful, we have the Bill of Rights. We have the human rights to balance, to protect the suspects, the lowly suspects, or to protect the people, the citizens, from unlawful actions of the government, specifically law enforcers or the police. Then human rights law obliges governments to do some things and prevent them from doing others. So it prevents them from violating our rights, from unlawfully prosecuting people, and to respect, obliging them to respect our human rights. Next, what are United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights? So human rights does not only come from the Philippines. Human rights is not an invention of the Philippines. Actually, human rights comes from international laws. And one source of international law is this declaration from United Nations. First declaration on equality. That everyone is born free. You and me were born free. So nobody is born as a slave. Nobody is born as an object, an owned object by another person. Everyone is free, equal in dignity. Then next, freedom from discrimination. Because we were born free, so we should be free from discrimination, either regardless of race, status, or physical appearance. So there should be no discrimination, whether disabled or not. So we are all equal in the eyes of the law. And declaration on life, liberty, and security, that everyone has the right to these ideals. Life, I have the right to life, you have the right to live. Everyone has the right to life, even suspects. That's why we are against with death penalty. We have no death penalty because we have a right to life. We protect right to life more than anything else. Next, number 4, we have freedom from slavery. Nobody should be enslaved during these days and the days to come. 5th, freedom from torture. 6, recognition as person before the law. So we are all persons, no matter who you are. You are a person in the eyes of the law. You have the capacity to contract, to enter into contracts. You have the capacity to negotiate as long as you're above 18. You're a person on the law. Even below 18, you're still a person. That's why we protect children. We have laws like the Child and Youth Welfare Code. We have the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act because we protect children. Even though they are children, they are humans in the eyes of the law. Next, number 7, equality before the law, whether rich or poor, whether fat or thin, ugly or not. So we are equal in the eyes of law. And we have also the right to seek remedy before our courts or tribunal. So we have the right to file cases. We have the right to contest or to answer the cases against us. So we have the right for remedy before the courts. A suspect has a right of remedy. One remedy is bail or fianza in Filipino and Cebuano. So he has the right for that remedy to dismiss the case against him, and so on and so forth. Freedom from arbitrary arrest. So law enforcers must be careful in arresting people. There must be cause, there must be probable cause before arresting a person, because everyone has a right against arbitrary or illegal arrest. Number 10, everyone has a right for fair public hearing. There should be a public trial regarding your case, except for private offenses like rape or other private offenses. Rape is a public crime, but there are privacy measures that should be used by the court so that rape cases are tried behind closed doors, and other private crimes. Next, we have the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. So the state has the burden of proof to prove the guilt of the accused. So it's not the accused who will prove his innocence, but it is the state that shall gather enough evidence to prove that this one is guilty beyond reasonable doubt, because everyone has the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. Next, we have the data privacy law, because we have the right to privacy. No one has the right to interfere with our privacy in our family and in our home. So if you listen to the news, there was a news that there was one blogger who posted the screenshots of the chat messages, messenger messages. That was a violation of the Data Privacy Act. So if you have chat messages and you screenshot it and you post it publicly, or you spread it even to other people through messenger also, that's violation of the data privacy law. Next, freedom of movement. We have the right to go anywhere, but subject to certain limitations. If you have no passport, no visa, you can go to other countries, and we have certain limitations. Number 14, we have the right to asylum. So if a person is persecuted in one country, maliciously persecuted in one country, he or she can seek asylum in another country. So he can go to another country and seek asylum or protection from that country from being deported to his country of origin. Next, we have a right to nationality. So even foundlings or persons just left by their parents without any identity, they have the right to nationality. Like, for example, Grace Poe. So Senator Grace Poe, previously a case was filed against her when she ran for president, and the Supreme Court ruled that she has the right to nationality. She was a foundling. She had no known father and mother. She was adopted by Fernando Poe, and she has a right to nationality being a Filipino. Next, we have the right to be married and have family. Nobody should be coerced not to marry or marry. So it is our right to choose who will be our partner. It's not our parents who should choose for us or any other person who should choose for us. Your girlfriend cannot force you, or your boyfriend cannot force you to marry him or her, regardless of situation, any situation. Even if a person has impregnated another person, so he or she cannot force you. But there are instances when the impregnated woman can seek for damages. She can file for a civil case for damages. Next, we have the right to own property. Next, we have freedom of belief, freedom of religion. This is also enshrined in our Philippine Constitution. Everyone has a freedom to believe. Nobody should be forced to join a particular religion, or nobody should be forced to believe in God. And nobody should be forced to forsake his own religion or to forsake God. Next, we have freedom of opinion. Of course, with certain limitations like libelous comments, so that's a limitation. Next, freedom of assembly. We have the right to protest, to conduct rally. Some workers in private companies, they have a right to strike, not to work because of company violations. But law enforcers have no right to strike. Always remember that. Next, we have the right to take part in the government. So people have the right to vote, to participate in the government, and for right for social security. That's why we have social security system, SSS. We have social security. Next, we have right to work, the right to desirable work, and to join trade unions. Then we have also the right to rest and leisure. So you can rest. You have the right to rest. Even in work, workers have the right for breaks, coffee break, snack, and meal break. So we have the right to rest. Next, we have the right to adequate living standard. That is why our government is doing its best to provide us with highways, provide us with roads, proper roads, provide us with water supply. So because we have the right to adequate living standard. Next, we have also right to education. That is why elementary and high school are free. That's what because we have the right to education. Next, we have the right to participate in cultural life. You can join the Buglasan Festival, you can join the cultural life, so you can do that. Next, you have the right for social order. So we have the right to have a peaceful environment. And also we have the right for mutual responsibility. So I am responsible for you, you should be responsible for me. So we must respect each other and have unity and respect our freedoms. So I have the right to be respected in terms of my own freedom or my rights. You have also the right to be respected. Next, we have a freedom from state or personal interference. So the state or any person cannot take away any rights that we have in this universal declaration. So those are the 30 UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Now, what are the Philippine laws on human rights? So I'll just enumerate them in our next or in our future lectures. We'll discuss them thoroughly in detail. So first, Article 2, Section 4 to 5. So this is the policy of the state to maintain peace and order, to protect life, liberty, and property, as well as to promote general welfare of the people. Next, Article 2, Section 10 to 11, to promote social justice. Social justice is those who have less in life must have more in law. That is social justice. So the poor, we have so many social legislation like the free tuition law. That is to achieve social justice, because those who have less in life must have more in law. Next, recognize the value of human dignity, that we are human beings, not animals. So we should be respected as a human beings, regardless of who you are, and respect for human rights. Next, in Article 2, Section 4 to 5, we is the policy of the state to maintain peace and order, to protect life, liberty, and property, and general welfare of the people, and for social, it's repeated. Next, in Article 3, Bill of Rights of all citizens from Section 1 to 22. We'll discuss the Bill of Rights in the future thoroughly, in detail. Also in Article 13, Section 17 to 18, so this provides for the creation of the Commission on Human Rights and its functions. We'll also discuss this in the future, the functions of the Commission on Human Rights, what is its role in upholding human rights of the Filipino people. We will learn that the Commission on Human Rights is not the enemy of law enforcers, not the enemy of the armed forces. No, the Commission on Human Rights is just to balance the scales of justice. Next, we have also special laws upholding human rights. Like, for example, we have Republic Act 7438. What is Republic Act 7438? It provides for the rights of suspects and those and detainees. Right to remain silent, right to have a lawyer, right, and the duties, it provides the duties of the arresting and detaining and investigating officers. How about Republic Act 9344? So, juvenile delinquents or children in conflict with the law has also certain rights that should be respected. So it doesn't mean that he committed murder, even though that child, age 10 years old, that you will put him inside the jail. No. So we have a law. They have a right not to be placed there for 10 years old. So 15 years old and below. Next, we have Republic Act 9262, the anti-violence against women and children. So women who are victimized by their partners have the right to seek legal assistance, like protection orders from the barangay. These women who are abused by their husbands or partners have the right to seek legal remedy. They have the right to privacy, to be taken care of or to be attended to by the women's desk or women's and children's desk in a police station. And also we have RA 9745, or the anti-torture law in the Philippines. So police officers are prohibited from torturing a suspect just to extract confession. Any confession that a police can extract by a suspect who was tortured, that evidence, that confession is inadmissible, cannot be accepted in court against that suspect. So even if the suspect confessed that he killed the victim, but that confession was extracted using torture, such confession cannot be used against him. So that is the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine. Next, we have RA 9851, or the Philippine Act on Crimes Against International Humanitarian Law, like genocide and other crimes against humanity. Next, we have also RA 10353, or the Anti-Enforced or Involuntary Disappearance Act. Just like in my previous example earlier, there were activists who were allegedly kidnapped by General Palparan. He was accused and convicted by RTC and Court of Appeals. Then we have also Republic Act 10173, or the Data Privacy Act. We have the right to privacy in terms of our data. Just as I said earlier, so if we have chat messages in the messenger, nobody should post that publicly. Nobody can post that publicly because we have the right to privacy. So, but for blind items that the person is not easily, or that could not be easily identified, so it could be done. No, if you delete the name, delete any identifying information in the messages, but just be careful when doing that. So to be sure, do not post or forward the messenger chats to other people, because we have the right to privacy. You cannot post even an ID of another person, you cannot post that on social media. You cannot expose the gender or the sexual, I mean sexual orientation of a person, that you will post on the social media that a person is gay, the person is lesbian, uh, even if it is true. Even if it is true, even if the person is really gay or lesbian, you are not, or bisexual, you have no right to divulge that in the public, because we have the Data Privacy Act. So that's it for our part 1. We will now proceed to part 2.